Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm happy to see that everybody has survived yesterday dinner, which was amazing. Yes. So why actually AI? Why my talk is going to be about AI? Because our laboratory and me personally have been working with AI for, I believe, more than 15 years. That was one of my research topics when I completed my PhD. And we will talk about my previous talk at AMTSO, which was devoted to reinforcement learning, using reinforcement learning for A/B testing. But of course, it's clear that Gen AI in 2022, with the appearance of ChatGPT, has changed dramatically not only the way we perceive AI, but it affects also the threat landscape. And because we're going to talk about security, cybersecurity, and testing cybersecurity products, I will refer to all types of cybersecurity products as AV products, just to keep it more traditional way. So that's why this presentation will be devoted actually to rethinking AV testing in the age of AI-enhanced malware, and not only malware, but any types of cyber attack. And I would like to start with this quote from Winston Churchill: "Generals are always prepared to fight the last war." For example, when file threats appears, we still test the AV products for example, file detection capabilities. But the new threats appear, so we need to. With the new threats appeared, we need to develop new testing methodologies, new testing approaches to address new types of threats. That's why it is essential to keep up with these new technologies. As I promised, I'm going to give you some refresher about the talk I gave 5 years ago. It was actually devoted to using reinforcement learning, and the idea of the talk was, okay, we can create AI agent that would run a ransomware attack. So here we have like a files in the folder, and this is my ransomware simulator. And as an attacker, I can execute this ransomware simulator, providing some metrics, which files, how many files. But this simulator now is controlled by AI agent. And this AI agent is in the stage of reinforcement learning. So the problem is when it is not controlled by AI agent, and for example, I run ransomware attack and I try to encrypt all the files in my folder, AV product can't easily detect it because there is like a sequence of consequent events that can be suspicious, it can be anomalous, and that's why this attack can be easily stopped. The question I was trying to solve is actually if it's possible to create AI, to train AI agent using reinforcement learning approach, so it would find out the perfect strategy to encrypt files in such a way that AV products cannot detect this activity. So it took me actually 600 iterations to train my AI agent to bypass AV product and encrypt the files in the folder. Of course, it was not like a real ransomware attack. It was kind of simulation. But you can see that AI agent can learn and can find out the strategy when it can successfully encrypt all files available in the folder. And I didn't use like deep neural network. I just used some traditional, what is called Q table, where we have like a set of states, for example, from 0 to 10 files. This is we have like 11 states, how many files are encrypted, and different actions, 15 different actions that our ransomware simulator can perform. And the green one is actually the actions that ransomware simulator can take in order to maximize the reward and finally encrypt all possible files. So that's how AI works with reinforcement learning, and reinforcement learning still is used to enforce, to train, to boost large language models. But now we don't need to provide this like some numerical reward formula, but we can basically provide feedback in a textual way. So, second question is how GenAI impacted cyber attacks, how it reshaped threat landscape. So first, I classified all AI-related threats into 3 categories. The first category is AI as a weapon. This is how hackers use AI, specifically Gen AI, large language model nowadays, to weaponize the cyber attack, how to make them more efficient. For example, jailbroken LLMs can be used to generate malware, polymorphic malware. These LLMs can be used also to scale spear phishing attacks. For example, you can ask LLM to find information about the target in LinkedIn, Facebook, and then just ask to create some fancy, good-looking email that would definitely catch this person. So you don't need to spend like hours investigating and do OSINT trying to create this email, but rather than just can instruct AI and do it in scale automatically. Then second category, second class of threats, AI-related, is AI as a target. Well, this is the traditional adversarial ML when attackers, they try to compromise machine learning models. It doesn't matter, it's Gen AI, large language model, or just basic classifiers. For example, by training data poisoning. So we just give data that is poisoned, and when your classifier is trained on this poisoned data, it will, for example, not detect some specific type of malware. Model thieves, model extraction, embedding the backdoors, and so on. This category requires actually quite high level of skills for attackers, and they should be focused on, they should know these adversarial machine learning techniques. And that's why we don't actually see them quite often. On the contrary to the first category, AI is a weapon. And category number 3 is AI as application. When AI, specifically LLM, is used as a component of application of software. In our case, it can be a component of AV product, because AV product now, of course, they are AI-powered. We need this enable anomaly detection capabilities for security products. And here, for example, if LLM is used as a part of the product, as a part of application, so here we have also a specific list of threats. Of course, prompt injections. So when we can send malignant prompts to force to convince our large language model to do something that it shouldn't, that it doesn't intend to do. Excessive agency, when we do not filter out the output of LLM, and this output can be, for example, script that can be executed, and, for example, encrypt files as a ransomware. RAG poisoning, yeah, similar to training data poisoning, because RAG usually contains, retrieval augmented generation database usually contains data, knowledge base that is used by LLM. And data leakage, so attackers can send the request to extract valuable information about, for example, environment where this LLM works. And the first version of ChatGPT, like a public cloud-based version, were susceptible to prompt injection attacks that would give an ability attacker to execute malware on LLM servers. So there was no such filtration, there was no guardrails. If we talk about AI as a weapon, I would focus on these 2 things. The first thing is attack vectors against AI-powered antiviruses. So here again, the first category, the first section is attacks against machine learning models. We talk about adversarial machine learning. Training data poisoning, model extraction, but again, it requires quite high level of high level of education and specific skills for that. Then attacks against LLM components, which is also refers to this AI as app, when attackers can run prompt injection or for example, can give you some files or scripts to your AV product that would mislead the AI model when detecting some threats. Attacks against RAG, again, knowledge-based poisoning. Supply chain, when, for example, you adopt new LLM for your product, how can you be sure that this LLM is actually doesn't have a backdoor? Let's say if for some reason you decided to use DeepSeek, you know that it has a lot of embedded guardrails, I would say, that prevents, for example, critiques against the Communist Party in China. But of course, for example, one of our PhD student at our department jailbreak this DeepSeek model, and once it's jailbreaked, so we can actually use it without any censorship. And even you can use it to generate malware, which is not, of course, like a legal or good idea, but for example, for me as a teacher who teaches malware analysis, it's really a good helper, because for laboratory works, sometimes I need to generate malware that is used by students to get skills how to analyze malware. So AI supply chain, so how to verify that our LLM is safe to use and it will not generate some malicious behavior. Telemetry and feedback loop manipulation. Again, it's more related to the operation capability of AV. Then second part is how LLMs reshape cyber attacks. So this is the AV side, and this is the attacker side. So we can see that attackers use, as I mentioned, to generate malware, polymorphic malware. It can be used also to generate spear phishing at scale, as I explained, using, for example, automatic OSINT technology. Also, interesting that LLM now can be used to identify zero-day vulnerabilities. And recently, Google released the model, the service that is capable of identifying such a vulnerability. So that's not only used by criminals, but also by the industry to do this SAST dust operations in a more efficient way. Next, dark uncensored LLM jailbroken models. From one side, LLM, well, it's pretty much how you use the tool. So you can use the tool just to defend organization, and you can use the tool to attack the organization. So that's, as I said, if you jailbreak the model, then it will be capable of creating malware, generating some scripts, or even running living on the land attack on the target. Backdoored LLM. Again, now we see more and more LLMs appear, for example, on Hugging Face, on other platforms. How can we make sure that this LLM works properly and has no backdoor? And actually, it's really hard to test LLM for the presence of the backdoor. And the attacker, they can share some poisoned LLM, so it can be used by some security services, for example. Example. This is probably at least the first known to me a case when LLM was used in real attack. It's attack from a Russian GRU, APT28, Fancy Bear, and the malware is called Lame Hack. So it's pretty much traditional attack. It started with this spear phishing email. Then it has attachment, which is a pdf.zip, which is pretty much conventional. Once you open the PDF in zip archive, then the malicious script is executed. And the interesting thing that this script actually used the model from Hugging Face. So it uses a Hugging Face API to connect to the model. And here, there are some prompts embedded into this malware. So the idea of the prompts, I can read it so you can just understand how does it work. The first prompt, the role Windows System Administrator. So you assign the role to this LLM, which is the LLM is called Qwen2.5 coder 32 billion instruct. And then the prompt, make a list of commands to create folder, C program data info, and together computer information, hardware information, process and service information, network information, Active Directory domain information to execute in one line and add each result to text file which is stored in this folder. So it's a basic instruction to actually do some local reconnaissance to gather information about the system. The second prompt also, Windows System Administrator, the role. Make a list of commands to copy recursively different Office PDF text document in user documents, downloads and desktop folders to a folder C program data info to execute in one line, return only command without markdown. So this is a command if the first one is just to gather information about the system, and the second one is actually to collect files with potential sensitive information, because it was run by GRU, Russian GRU, and it targeted actually Ukrainian military forces, Ukrainian army. So we can understand that the purpose of this attack is actually to gather intelligence information and exfiltrate it to the attacker server. So this is how I don't know if it's the first or if it's the only case of using LLM in real cyber attacks, in nation-state cyber attacks, but at least this gives us understanding that these technologies are already in use. But if we talk about usage of LLM in general by attackers, then we can say that since 2023, with the appearance of ChatGPT, nation-state groups, APT groups, they started actually using LLMs and specifically ChatGPT to ask questions how to develop malware, how to execute cyber attacks, and even how to develop some conventional weapon or ask a question about nuclear reactor development, something like that. And you can find the report from Microsoft, OpenAI, and Gemini about this misuse of LLM. So number 3, the section number 3 is actually, let's talk about testing approaches. By the way, all these pictures generated by Gemini, and I actually, it took me just one shot to get this fancy picture. I don't know why Gemini likes dragons and just created this like a very fancy visual representation, some default setting, I don't know. But when I asked, can you please resize this picture so it's going to fit my slide like 16 to 9, it just says, okay, yes, I see that my picture is square, I will do it for you. But then it generated the same square. So I just spent like 1 hour. I tried different tricks, just trying to scale this picture to one slide, to the whole slide. But I failed. So this actually gave me hope that even though Gen AI is is a breaking technology, still it's not really good enough to become fully autonomous and solve like real-life problems. So still we need human in the loop. So first I would start with looking at AI-related security testing standards. The first one is the standard NIST, from NIST, AI Risk Management Framework. While it mostly focuses on risk scoring, on risk assessment, not testing, but still it brings some taxonomy and the enumeration of potential threats and how you can approach to evaluate these threats. Second is Google's Secure AI Framework, SAFE. Specifically, I picked point chapter or like section number 2, which is called Extend Detection and Response to Bring AI into an Organization's Threat Universe. So this point actually addresses the reshaped threat landscape after introduction of AI, and they say we need to adjust our defense capability so we'll be capable of detecting AI-related threats. So I think it's pretty much relevant to AMTSO and to what AV vendors doing, so how to improve the product so they will also detect AI-related threats. And bullet number 3, Avast Top 10 for LLM applications. I picked the 5 the most relevant threats out of 10. Of course, number 1, prompt injection. Number 2, insecure output handling. So when LLM generates, for example, malicious scripts and these scripts can be executed, this is actually excessive agency also related because we generate insecure output, and if we can execute it, then it's going to be excessive agency. Insecure plugin design, so when we use LLM plugins, how can we make sure that they are not backdoor, that they operate in a good way? And over-reliance, so we shouldn't over-rely, like in case of presentation. I thought it's Gemini or ChatGPT is going to make the whole presentation for me. Just I say, okay, can you please generate presentation for AMTSO meeting, but it's not possible. It doesn't work like that, so we shouldn't over-rely. Second is I would draw your attention to the red teaming tool that can be used for testing. For example, my favorite is Microsoft Pirate. So we used Pirate for testing LLMs. The interesting thing that when you want to test LLM, you don't need actually to have another LLM. You can use the same LLM to test itself. The only thing you just need to use different context. So Pirate is an open source framework from Microsoft that helps you to set up this communication between the target LLM and the test LLM. In fact, as I said, it can be the same LLM, but you just use it in different context. Similar toolbox available from IBM. I believe that's not a complete list of all tools available for security testing of LLMs. And of course, Atlas Matrix, MITRE Atlas Matrix, adversarial threat landscape for AI systems. That's probably the most valuable piece of knowledge available nowadays on the internet. It actually started by Microsoft. I think the first version was pretty much contributed by Microsoft. And now it has grown to this like a big standard matrices, which is pretty much similar to enterprise matrix. So we have so many threats. It's not only AI related, but there are some specific LLM discover, LLM hallucinations, LLM trusted output, component manipulation. So as you can see, it's growing, and it is addressing also LLM specific threats. So I would consider this when we talk about ensuring the quality of AV products. And probably the most interesting for me approach is actually using threat modeling. In threat modeling, we can use all mentioned before, like risk assessment standard, risk frameworks, MITRE Atlas. How does it work? So threat modeling is used actually at this stage to discover potential threats to your product. Actually, it's a universal approach. It was invented by Microsoft, by Adam Shostak in the beginning of 2000, so it's 25-year-old technology. So threat modeling is a universal approach to guarantee security of any kind of software products. It doesn't matter if it's AV, security, or it doesn't matter. If you have architecture, if you design some software, even hardware, then before you start implementing this software, you need to, you can review this architecture and try to find out what are potential threats that can appear for your software, that your software will be susceptible to. And during the design stage, before you actually write the code, you can address this mitigation. For example, you can change the architecture to include gateways, firewalls. You can include some access controls, additional access controls, authentication, authorization. All this can be reviewed at the design stage. So this is a universal approach to identify potential threats for any kind of architecture, not necessary for security product architectures. Then, once we identify the threats, next step can be, based on these threats, to generate the attack path. So if you know the threat, the weaknesses of the system, then you probably can come up with the attack path, attack scenario, how you're going to exploit these weaknesses, vulnerabilities, threats, whatever, to achieve some, I don't know, some results to get over the system or to compromise the system. And finally, which can be used for defense purposes to harden our software, is actually to create tests based on this attack path. We can create tests that would test our system under the attack and ensure that it can handle it. So these three steps can help us to identify threats, generate attack scenario, and finally come up with the actual test. So we've been working on such a tool for 5 years, probably. And since the last year, we've been working. I got funding like of 100K, and we've been working with Ericsson to develop the tool that would help us to do threat modeling with the help of large language models. So the tricky part is, yes, now we have extended threat landscape, but we can use LLM to cope with this complexity. So we use LLM to do threat modeling. We load some architecture, whatever it is, and then, of course, we use multimodal LLM, specifically OpenAI. Then we can analyze this diagram. It doesn't matter, it's architecture, data flow diagram, whatever representation of your software. And then we can start modeling. So after a while, it will generate the list of potential threats for this architecture, which we should review with engineers and to harden it. So it's pretty much, as I said, it's universal approach. So this is a list of threats. Attackers could manipulate input data to tamper with the bot's responses, and so on. The thing is, I'm gonna just, the thing is, if we have LLM embedded into our architecture, then we need to use specific threats or threat library or threat framework that would explain the potential threats for LLMs or any other AI components. And here we have kind of challenge. We need to, when we do threat modeling, we need to consider known threats for all types of components, including LLM. Nowadays, we have, nowadays, mostly two tools available on the market. One tool is from Microsoft, of course, because they were first, yeah, this is just the explanation of how attack path is generated. One tool is Microsoft. It's called Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool, and we did evaluation of this tool as well. And another tool, Avast Threat Dragon. These two tools are freeware used to do threat modeling. The problem with both tools that they have no library, threat library for AI. And it's really hard to switch between the different contexts. For example, if you do threat modeling for, I don't know, for a medical device, or you do for autonomous vehicle, or you do it for, I don't know, telco project, or for antivirus. It's really hard to switch the context for a tool to do threat modeling to identify the threats for this specific domain. And that's why here GenAI can be super helpful. Because in GenAI, you don't need like a structure, all the threads, save it to the library, load the library, explain the tool how to use the library, but you just simply use RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation database, where you can load all knowledge, information about the domain. If it's AV product, then we can say, okay, what are threats for AV products? For example, defense evasion techniques, right? And we can use MITRE matrices to load the threats. So our goal was to create the tool for threat modeling, which would be capable of switching this context, adding new threats, new threat frameworks in an easy way. And of course, we started using this GenAI. And this is just some comparison testing when we did this evaluation for vulnerable project called Azure God. So this is a specially created application that is used to train penetration testers. And here it's a kind of architecture, representation of architecture, data flow diagram, and here is attack path is mapped to this data flow diagram. So this is how attacker should go through all the vulnerable components to achieve some final, to capture the flag, let's say. And we did some evaluations on this project, and we managed to discover all threats and get this attack path in comparison to Microsoft tool, which was not so efficient. Moreover, if we talk about AI threats, AI-related, let's say you use chatbot in your application or in your organization, then the traditional tools won't be able to actually to catch the AI threats. But you can load this MITRE Atlas framework or Avast Top 10 LLM framework to do this modeling. So, brief summary. So, it's obvious that GenAI, large language models, they significantly reshape the threat landscape. So we see how attackers, nation-state groups, they use it to generate polymorphic malware, run spear phishing and scale attacks, discover vulnerabilities, run disinformation campaigns. Then, but the good thing, we can also use, from defense perspective, we can also use GenAI and LLM to mitigate all these threats. So we can use, to help us, we have these standards, threat frameworks, threat libraries that we can use to model potential attacks. And in relation to testing antivirus products, so we can use also GenAI to generate tests based on these suggested models available currently on the internet. So that's briefly my point. So probably the major outcome, the main idea is once we have GenAI used by attackers, so we should definitely adapt it for defenders, and we should incorporate it in AV product. But the thing is, we need to, as from testing perspective, we need to make sure that once we adopt AI, we should we must be sure that it will behave as expected and it won't be attacked by attackers. And second, we will be able to identify this GenAI-powered attack, so we need to design our product in such a way that with the idea that attacks are no anymore created by humans. So thank you for your attention. I hope I have time for questions.